Hi, everyone. I just wanted to thank you all for coming to this awesome event. It is our last workshop of the semester. I'm really pumped for this one. My name is Mona Malcolm. I am a development board member for the Center for Leadership. I just wanted to remind you guys, if you all could turn on your cameras, use the chat box feature, reactions. We'd really love to have everyone be as engaged as possible for this awesome event, because it is our last event and we'd love to see your smiling faces. So, again, I'm going to take a few moments. Also forgot to mention, this event is going to be recorded. So if you guys can't make this event or you guys are a little busy, we'll have it, in the drive or something like that, so you guys all can, view it later. So I'm going to take a few moments to introduce our wonderful guest for today's storytelling workshop, and that is Mr. Charles Antis. So Charles Antis is the CEO and founder of Antis Roofing and Waterproofing, and he began his career in this industry in 1984. Since then, he's become one of the most trusted names in Southern California roofing industry, and as well as a philanthropic leader in the community. What stood out to me personally about Charles was his passion to do good and give back to his community. Upon meeting him, you can instantly feel his passion and his excitement for his career and those around him. I met Charles actually at an all boards meeting a while back, and just literally as soon as you walk into the room, he just has this energy that, makes you want to gravitate towards him, makes you want to listen to him. So I'm really excited to see what he has in store for today. I'm really excited for you all to hear his knowledge and everything he has to share. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it on to Charles to start the event.
Thank you, Mona. I saved this. I was going to use this later in the show, but thank you for the compliment. But I can say this about you too. You are a badass. As I can say, that's true with every student that I've met. You guys have really opened my eyes. And I think one of the reasons that you guys stand out to me is because of your stories. There's calm in your stories, and there's complete in your stories. And together, that is beautiful. So I'm going to start by telling you a story that I've never told before, because I'm living it today. Where the magic happens, when you see your stories, when you're living them. And this story really starts with thank you for those nice words, Mona. You said a lot of nice things about my company. And I think that they're true. Our intent has been to do this and to do right to get recognized by doing what's right by our people and all of our stakeholders. Yet I got to tell you what happened to me in Minnesota. And when I came back in February, I went to Minnesota to speak at a big conference on doing good, and in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And that's right, it was starting to happen. And then I went on, because everything changed, everything got grounded. And I was speaking on these principles of doing right, doing what's right in business, taking care of your people no matter what. And all of a sudden, the world just said, okay, we're going to test. And I got to tell you, I was scared. As a business owner, I was scared, because you say you want to do, you don't know sometimes if you can, but there's something magic about saying you want to do what's right. And so I said, let's do what's right. And everything's shifting. And my company looks at me, what are we going to do? And I knew my job right then was to say, let's keep people dry. Let's be steady. What are we going to do about what's happening out there? We'll be okay. Let's keep people's roofs dry. And then I'm wondering in my mind, is it right? Is there really a currency of social good? Like I've been saying, do people really know what brands do? Do their stories really matter? And as I was saying this, one of the ways that I show that my stories matter, habitat builds. It's Ronald McDonald House, but the habitat builds of building homes, people, families that need it, they were shut down because of COVID. The meals of love we were cooking for students or for the families in Ronald McDonald House, they were shut down because of COVID. And so what are we doing? We didn't know what we were doing in the moment. And all this is going on, and somebody said something about food insecurity. Now, I don't know if you've heard about food insecurity. I've heard in other countries, but I wasn't really hearing that it's here in Orange County. And then I'm wondering what we're going to do in our company. What are we going to do in our company about food insecurity? And then it really hits home. And somebody says, there's 20% of the people in our county, elderly and family children, that don't have enough to eat. 22% don't have enough to eat. And I thought, I have to show up. I have to do something. And so I did something entirely new. I went to Harvest. And I offered to drive in the Second Harvest Truck Brigade. And that's why I'm wearing this t-shirt today, because I just got back from there. And I drove food to the Food Insecure, which means we would take food to senior centers. But my very first trip was not to a senior center, it was to a woman's house, a condo in Lake Forest. And I remember I took this box of food, had all the things she was gonna need for a week in it. And I called her and said it was here. And she said, could you bring it upstairs? And we weren't supposed to have contact with them because she says, I can't get it. Can you bring it in the house? And so she opened the door and I bring it in the house. And then I laid the box down, and then I was uncomfortable. And then she looked at me and she said, bless you. And I said, huh? And she said, bless you. And I said, what? And she said, bless you, bless you, bless you. And she started throwing these bless yous at me. And at first I was collecting them. And then pretty soon, as she kept blessing me, it hit me. And after that, since Minnesota, when I didn't know how to lead my company, I didn't know if I was on the right path, suddenly in that moment, carrying a box in that old apartment, lady in the town, she looked at me and she blessed me. And I noticed when I turned around, I felt blessed like I'd never felt. And all of a sudden I felt relevant where I felt it in a while. And it was the most awesome feeling. And then she did one more thing. She turned around and she said, excuse me, one more thing. And I thought she was going to go give me and I was kind of excited to receive it. But she came around the corner again and she had a really, really squeezed out tube of Colgate toothpaste and an empty hotel bar of soap. And she said, could you get me some more supplies? So you see the whole humanity of it, and it caught me up in the moment. And that's why today I just got back, and I wasn't going to tell this story. I just got from Second Harvest Bank, where I very proudly told that story, and they wrote it on my arms and they took a picture of it. And that's why storytelling's so important, because story moved me, and it moved some of the people, and it moves some of the community. And because of us, we believe that other companies will do what our company did, and that's send a fleet of trucks every week to help the food insecure in our community. That's my opening story, because I just got back and I realized I was going to have to change what I was going to do and tell you the bless you story. So there's a win in storytelling right there. There's things in storytelling. So before we go any further, could I ask the students to introduce themselves? And I want to tell them in one, because storytelling, we have to be concise. I can tell this story in 30 seconds. I have to be able to, because normally you don't have the floor for that long. But right now, I'd like you to introduce yourself in one sentence, if you can. Okay, just don't take 5 minutes. What you want to learn today, why you're here, or what you want to learn. And if you do that, I promise you we'll do better at getting us all, because you're not the only one who's going to learn. I promise I'm going to learn from you. I tell stories about you guys because you help me see the world more full. So I don't know how we're going to do this. Rosalind, can you pick? I don't lead well, but can you just have everybody introduce themselves?
Yes. So let's start with Mona, since she introduced you. So go ahead, Mona.
Cool. So I'm saying my name and why I tell stories.
Why you're here, or what was my other question? What you hope to get. Why you're today, or what you hope to learn today.
Okay, awesome. So hi guys, I'm Mona again. I already introduced myself in the beginning. I specifically wanted to come to this event because I know how you are. I've seen the way you talk to people and like the impact you have on them just because of your energy, like I said before. And I hope also to share my own story and share how I can help others by, telling them how I've gone through some stuff in my life and, add to my own story and my own fingerprint in every single interaction that I have. So every single person, honestly, that I talk to kind of adds to my own story. And so any person that, makes an impact on me kind of resembles that. So learning how to tell more of a story and learn from others is what I'd like to gain from this event specifically.
Awesome.
Oh, Charles, I think you're muted.
Tell me that last sentence again, those two things you said in a sentence.
I said that I would like to expand on my own story and learn from others to hear from their
Stand
stories.
on your own story. Yeah. Okay. I like that. Okay. Good. All right. I'm gonna write that down. Normally I don't write stuff down, but go ahead. Let's go to the next one.
Okay, Selena, let's go to you. I'm just going off my computer screen.
Okay, well, hi, my name is Selena. Why I'm here is that I also met Charles Antis at the All Boards meeting, and I absolutely loved how energetic and uplifting he made the whole environment and of the room be. And one thing I would love to take away from this event is how to tell my stories in a more concise way so that I have more time to hear other people's stories.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Selena. Next, let's go to Annie. Can you unmute yourself?
Selena, on yours, while she's unmuting, I add passion, because you said you like the way I add passion. And so I think let's make sure we cover that. It's really an important part of storytelling, and it's a different discussion. So, okay.
Okay, so we're actually going to come back to Annie. So let's go to Maria.
Hello, my name's Maria, and what I hope to get from this event is being able to, I guess, kind of make my energy like more into my story. So instead of just being kind of monotone, being able to engage people in my story.
Awaken your story, make it come alive, alive and engaging.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Maria. Let's go to Christina.
Hi, my name's Christina, and I'm here actually by advice from from Maribel. And the reason I'm here to listen is, or what I hope to learn today is how to tell a good story, or how to get people engaged, and how to tell a story that people connect with, I guess, would be a good one. So something that we both can be shared, that can be learned from.
That's great. That people connect with. That's huge. Yes. Yes. Oh, it makes me just want to say so many things. I'm so glad we're doing this. This is going to be so much better. You guys are really tapping into some stuff. Yes. Keep going.
All right. Let's go to, is it Bettina? Sorry if I said your name wrong. You're going to help me.
Yeah, no, that's right. So hi, everyone. I'm Bettina. So, well, I first came here today to become more active in the Center for Leadership. I got introduced to the center because of the mentorship program the center runs. But from this workshop today, I would really like to learn how to be an impactful, engaging storyteller, how to tell stories in a way that will spark thought, to make people think deeper. Just hearing Charles speak in his introduction, it really made me think like, wow, he's really engaging, really impactful, and yeah, just makes me want to hear what he has to say.
Sounds like you want to change the world. You want to spark change, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, if what we say, what we think happens. Think small, we'll move small. Think big, thoughts become things. Choose good ones. So you're talking about you want to spark a movement, you want to spark people to mean something, then you want to move them from point A to point B. You want to lift them to see something forever different, higher. What if they could see the situation better, but also, oh my God, I used to be down here. Now look, I made myself taller. I'm way up here. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spark off one of these, but I could lecture off all these. I love these. Keep going. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bettina, and welcome. Annie, let's go back to Annie. Her mic is fixed.
Hello, I'm Annie, and I would like to learn how to be more of like a confident speaker and storyteller, because I stumble on my words a lot and I feel judged by a lot of people, so I don't express myself as well as I'd like to.
Okay, that's good. I have some really good things that will lead to competency. It's weird science. I'm excited to explain it soon. Let's keep going. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's go on to Crystal.
Hi, my name's Crystal, and this is the first time that I've heard or met Charles, and so it's really nice that you're here. And at least what I've gotten from this first few minutes of being here is that you're very confident and you have a very engaging personality. I know engaging is already on there, but just your personality, it's very charismatic. And so I'd like to learn how to take features of that into my own personality.
Oh, good. I love it. A great one. That's a huge part of storytelling that I don't always tell. How to personality. I'll just leave that. We'll know what it means. How to make it real. You have to be real. You have to have tools to be real. I'll talk about that. Make sure I talk about the tools. There's tools to be real. Otherwise, your stories become fake. They become cardboard cutouts. That's what my storytelling coach calls them. Cardboard cutouts. I call them tape recordings. If I ever catch myself telling the story about the girl with the moldy mattress, which sounds like a tape recording right there, I normally don't even fling it like that. That story is it's almost the word sacred because it means so much. That story, I get emotion thinking about it. You can make your stories, you can hold them that way. But you can only do it if you use the tools to be real. And sometimes the tribes we live in, we all live in sorts of tribes, one way to say political party, ethnicity, physical location, family experience, all the things that we have to find out who we really are. Sometimes it's just like my story where what's going on right now. And I had to physically see a person to wake me up to my story. So this is good. Just keep going.
Okay, awesome. Josh, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Josh. There's so many things I want to learn. I would say I want to learn how to tell fun and interesting stories, but also make sure they're inspiring. So I want to learn how to do that, but also genuine stories, like without a lot, like what is it called? Exaggerating. I don't like when people exaggerate on their stories, and I can tell they're like talking about something that probably didn't happen, or making it bigger than it was.
Yes. These are really good things. These are all, you guys are really framing this, that I couldn't have done this without you. It's got to be genuine. I'm around some stories that people want to make stuff on. They don't realize they're doing it. Maybe they do. Maybe they think it's okay. I try to say, well, what really happened? Don't we want to say what really happened? And no, the story will not last if it's not real. It needs to be genuine. Now, what hell in the story? Every nonprofit I'm on the board on, I don't tell you some of the crap that goes on. And that only means not everything runs smoothly. But I tell the story of what's working. I tell the spirit of what we're really building to. Don't ever tell the story of what you're not, or that will fail. You can exaggerate a little bit. You're not. So I exaggerate all the time. I catch myself. I don't realize I'm doing it, but I don't see where it is now. I see where it's going to be in 3 months because I'm building it. So I talk about it like I see it. But if I'm talking about like the way he's building his and not the way I'm building mine, then it's going to fail. The story has to be real. So thank you for talking about genuine. You cannot inspire if it's not genuine. You can do a kind of a fake, kind of a little fireworks, but looks kind of pretty for a week, but it doesn't last. It doesn't stay unless it's real. And it's only real if you're thinking about it and doing it all the time. So I'm sorry, I got off track. Let's go, keep going, because this is discussion.
All right, Maribel, you're up next. Maribel, can you unmute yourself and?
Yeah, sorry, it was like a 3-second pause. Yeah, so Charles, I actually got the privilege to know you. I think one of my first executive meetings, and you actually gave me a high five, and it was just the most amazing high five I've ever had. And it's just that smile and that kindness that you had. Well, I'll give you that permit, and then you ran away, then you ran back inside. And it was just amazing, and it's always amazing just to hear you. And from this workshop, I definitely want to just try to storytell with connection or vulnerability, because right now I feel vulnerable with COVID, with my health issues, and I definitely want to be able to relate to other people. How can I make my art, especially with graphic design and illustration, relevant to other people and not feel lost of the meaning?
Okay, I'm going to say 30 seconds on that. All of my old stories are dead if I keep telling them the way I told them. Stories are only important through the way other people hear things in the world. And right now there's a lot of pains there. So don't add to the pain, add to the remedy. We have to be relevant, and we're only relevant. It's like every message I tell all of my boards I'm on is, and we're about ready to put a message out there, internal, external. Wait a minute. How would we have said this 9 months ago? And we realized, okay, should it be different? Oh yeah, it should be. Because what's different than 9 months ago? Because people are insecure about this, and this. So relevance is huge. My old stories are only relevant. The Ronald McDonald, I can't see where I'm at here. The Ronald McDonald socks that I'm wearing, I can't kick my legs up high. My Ronald McDonald House story had to change. We had to add it. We didn't realize, but I started talking about it. It's like, well, we're not bringing foods to the family. We're keeping families safe and close today, when we added those last 4 words today when we needed 6 words, because now it makes it relevant, because, oh yeah, there's a relevant protection there. They can keep the family sick to the chalk so they can heal. So we have to make it relevant. So keep going.
Thank you, Maribel. Next up is Daisy.
Hi, my name is Daisy, and I like to learn more and hear more from Charles today about how to tell great stories and how to tell a story of my own to people.
Your own story, that's so key. Your own story, yes. Thank you.
Awesome. Next up is Dayton.
Hi, I'm Dayton, and one thing I'm hoping to gain is I really just want some of Charles's enthusiasm to rub off on me.
Okay, yeah, I can make that happen. Rub off enthusiasm.
Thanks, Dayton. Next up is Sherry.
Hi, my name is Sherry. I'm a 3rd-year marketing student, and Charles Antis. I remember my first Leadership Scholars retreat was at his office, and I was a freshman, I believe, going into my sophomore year. And I told myself, like, is this really a business building? His walls are plastered. If you ever have the honor to visit his office, his walls are plastered with red, green, yellow, any color you name it, with like superheroes and just inspirational words all around. And I was like, who is this Charles Antis? I need to meet him. And we had the privilege as scholars to hear his story. And one of the stories that he told that day was about visiting a unfortunate woman that had a leaky roof, and inspired him and the reason why he built his company today. And the fact that, now that I think about it, it's about 2 years ago, and I still remember the story. That just shows how powerful his storytelling is. And so when I heard that Charles Antis is going to have a workshop on how he teaches storytelling and his secrets behind storytelling, I was like, I'm in, count me in. And so I'm super excited to be here. And one thing I really want to learn is to tell stories that are super memorable, because as students, we're going to go into interviews. They're going to be asking us like situational questions. How do we describe the conflicts, our strengths and weaknesses in a way that people are going to remember us forever? So I think Charles is going to be amazing today. I'm super excited to learn, and just, I'm all ready. Thank you so much, Charles, for being here. And thank you, Leadership Scholars.
Thank you. You guys have fired me up. I see one more student in the room. He's got a beard.
Yes, let's go to our director, Jay Barbuto.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Hey, it's so glad you could be here, Charles. Why I'm here today and what I'm hoping to get out of this. I'll tell you what, about 4 years ago, I met Charles Antis. He was being recognized for an Executive of Leadership Award. He showed up, we were meeting over at the Marriott next to campus in the lobby at the little restaurant there. And Charles shows up in this really nice suit, well-fitted, very, you can see handsome man, and very like had a great presence to him. He was clean shaven at the time. And he came over and he sat down. He was a little nervous and excited to meet me because he was winning this award. He didn't know much about it. Not very many people in the community had really known him yet. And he was so excited. He sat down and we started talking. He started getting emotional. And I said, what happened, Charles? He says, well, on the way here, I was moved by a homeless person and a biker. And he went on to tell me the story of how this homeless person who was scared of the biker, when the biker approached the homeless person, the homeless person backed off. But the biker was actually reaching into the back of his bike and giving the homeless person the only water that he had. And Charles, sitting in traffic, started to become emotional when he saw the goodness that's still in this world. And when he met with me, he was telling me this story and he cried. And at that moment, I knew that he and I were going to have a very long journey together. And so I'm here today to practice telling stories and to try to make them as memorable as possible.
That was really good storytelling, Jay, you son of a gun. Made me cry again, and I didn't want to cry right then, but thank you. You actually did a really good job, and I'm gonna explain why. But I wanted to go back really quick to Sherry. You said how to be super memorable, and I'm gonna tell you the story that I'm gonna tell next the story that you mentioned, because it's a story that I tell more than anything, because it kind of says a lot about why we exist. But when we're done, I'm going to tell you why it's memorable from a scientific point of view. Not that I'm a scientist, but from what those people tell me. Jay might say so. Jay could more speak on that side. So I'll tell you, and I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have to change this screen. Hang on. I'm going to think there's a better way to do this. Okay, try that. Okay, so yeah, I don't know if you guys figured this out yet. I have a roofing company. We keep families safe and dry, which is a key thing to say now. It took us a long time to come up with that tagline. But one of the stories that took me there was 30 years ago when I was just getting started, actually 31 years ago. And I didn't really have the ability to sell roofing at the time. I just discovered that I could repair anything that leaked from rain. And that was the one thing that I could sell. And I would get a couple of calls a week, and calls were so important that I would put weather stripping to soundproof that home bedroom that I had converted into an office. So if a caller called, a potential client, they wouldn't hear my daughter. So under that type of getting 2 calls a week, then I get a call one day and it's and she's got leaks in every room. And that's like perfect for me. I can go out there, I can do some repairs, make some good cash. And so the next day I'm driving out to the home. It's in LA and it's kind of near the airport. And I notice it's like closer to the LA airport and closer to where this home's going to be. I'm noticing the homes are a little more disheveled. And suddenly I turn on the street where the home would be and I look back and I see this dead grass like field in this small home with like a hanging letter, but it had a half on it. So, oh, maybe it's 140 and a half. Maybe it's not it. Knock on the door, hoping it's not it. And then 3 things happened that just set this whole reason I'm sitting here telling you the story this day. This woman answers the door and she's kind of middle-aged, but an expression of pain and like, I'm tired, like I've had a really bad month. But as I'm about to say something to her, before I can say anything, I'm hit with the smell of mildew. The smell of mildew is so strong, it causes me to recoil and I want to leave. In fact, I had that fight or flight thing. I'm thinking of what I'm going to say when I'm going to leave. But as I'm thinking of what I'm going to say when I'm going to leave, I feel a tug at my finger. And I look down, I just see this little 6-year-old blonde haired girl. Unlike her mom and me with these pained expressions, she's got this grin from ear to ear because she's got this visit house and she's so grateful. And she just pulls me in to this crowded living room, in through this undersized hallway. And then finally she turns into this little home, this little room. I know it's her room because she's pointing to the wall where there's this unicorn poster. It was a My Little Pony poster. But that was the moment I looked down and I saw 4 moldy mattresses. And I just sat there because I was frozen. I knew suddenly there was no money here. it was a threat to my young family that I had, that I needed to make a mortgage payment, that I felt like I needed to get out of this room. This cute girl, as cute as she is. But as I sat there frozen, unable to make an utterance out of my, what seemed like forever, 30 seconds, finally her mom walks back in the room. And when I looked from the daughter's face back to that pained expression on the mom's mouth, out of my mouth came something I'd never said before that I can remember. And I said, I'm going to take care of your roof. And it just hung there, hung there like, oh, can I? Will I? Did I just lie? Is it possible? I don't have resources. So I went up there hoping it was like a little hole, and no, the roof was gone. Wood was exposed. So I went and got 6 volunteers and a bunch of goop from Home Depot. We went up and we gave them a drippy on the outside, but dry roof in that family's home. And that was the thing that ended up being something. But at the time, it was almost like, hope that doesn't happen again. But really, that was that moment, that doctor on an airplane moment, when suddenly I had a skill that could help this family like no one else could. And I found a way to get it done for them. I found that ended up changing everything in my life. It ended up creating a culture that is what you hear and you feel today. You mentioned it a little while ago. Where did you go? Where did you go? Who mentioned that?
Sherry.
Who mentioned Sherry, sorry. So anyway, this is, when you tell stories, you don't normally break the trance. If you break that, you lose the story. But if you do, you laugh at it and acknowledge it and move on. But that's basically what I say, my origin story. That's the story that I say, why we exist, to keep families safe and dry. Usually I run it up to the future. I talk about how Habitat for Humanity called 12 years ago. They said, hey, well, you donated a roof? And I said, yeah, it was really easy to donate a roof. But then they started talking about it. They started saying anti-roofing, donating roofs, transforming lives. That's how we got this. We didn't set out for it. I didn't think it was a good idea. I just pained me to see somebody in need, and I had to do something as I could. Somewhere along the line, I learned that talking about it is good. And somewhere along the line, I learned that storytelling is good. But I want to get back to Sherry, right? Sherry, and who mentioned how to make stories super memorable. And I want to tell Sherry the reason you remember that story in particular. The reason you remember that story in particular is because of the mold. You smelled it. When I tell that thing that really happened to me, that has a physical manifestation that your body can experience it. It's an alignment thing bodies do. I'm not going to talk about the science very correctly, so I won't. But when that happens, it's exactly the same as if you were in the room with me smelling that mold. It literally physically transports you to that experience. And if I honor the story well, if I'm telling, and I don't know, I don't want to say truth matters in storytelling, but it does, because truth matters to what, if it matters to you, if you're an intentional person, then you tells a fake story. Not everyone can tell. I can tell when something's not, I'm not trying to give myself any superpower, but I can tell a fake story. Half the room's not there. It's not because something's not right, or they're telling the story to brag or for the wrong intent. But a story, there's a goodness principle to a story that I like to talk about, because it's about exposing what really is. If a story is holding back over here and letting it out over here, then it's not authentic. And so I kind of ran off at path. I want to stand back and give somebody tangible. And so I want to talk about the 2 stories that we did so far. One was the story of Second Harvest, the story of me not knowing my place in the world, and then me having the pain of seeing this woman and suddenly having this rough feeling relevant in the world again. And I want to call that something that will be relevant today. And I'm going to call that a journey curve. And this is kind of a journey curve. I'm holding this right here. And this is from Golden's book, Retellable. And a journey curve kind of follows this principle that, and I'm going to pull this down and I'm going to just talk about it. A journey curve says, if you want to tell an effective story, say what the world was like, and then it's got to have a deep, dark cave. It goes into a pain. When you tell the pain in the story, the world was like this until suddenly this happened. And when this happened, the listener has a physical reaction. When you smell the mold, your body squirts and it hurts. And when I talk about that mold, you're in pain. And the listener can only hold that for a little while, more than 30 seconds generally. And I got to give them the antidote. I got to give them the oxytocin. And that's why I told you about, we looked at her roof. That's why I told you that I looked at her mom and said, I'm going to take care of your roof. And it made me emotional when I thought about it right then, because it's a real story. And when you hear the emotion of me telling you that I took care of their roof, you know I did it. And your body goes through this physical manifestation of, oh, pain, as if I'm being cut, to, oh my God, as if I just had a really good drink. That's drink's maybe not the right metaphor, but something really good. And so that's what a journey curve is. A journey curve is, you have to take somebody from pain to gain. You don't tell a story to just drop names and tell bullshit. Stories have to have a reason they exist. They're to take somebody from point A to point B. So I'm going to give you one more thing that explains that. This is a journey curve cheat map, and I want you to write these down. It sounds really basic, but I want you to start your stories today with once upon a time. And then the everyday thing I'll explain. Every day is what life was like. And then one day this happened. And because of that, this happened. And maybe because of that, this happened, until finally this happened. So let's plug this to Charles's story. Let's do this to this story. And I've never done it before because this is kind of a new story. And this was kind of a jumbled story. I had too much information in it, but I was telling you where it was at. Once upon a time, Charles ran a business. His company got all kinds of awards for social responsibility every day, that they were doing social good. And then one day the world came to an end, because his social responsibility wasn't working. Because of that, he was interested in other things. He heard something about food insecurity. Because of that, he offered to deliver food for Second Harvest Food Bank. And as he was delivering that, he submitted to this girl, and this lady said, "Hey, Charles, bless you, bless you, bless you." She blessed him until finally he felt blessed. And then he turned around and he got his position in the world, and he realized that he was on the right track. That's it. You could also apply this. And so what I want you to do, one of the things my storytelling coach did with me is he made me say these silly things. But I want you to realize I'm saying these in the story. When I told you when I'm driving to the neighborhood where the home would be, until finally I turned on the home the street would be. I'm using terms in my story. It's so giving these little physical bumps to the listener to make it easy for him to know that in the story, because somebody who talks a lot like me, the problem is I talk so much you don't know where I am in the story. And that's what happens. This allows the listener to know where you're at in the story. So did everybody get a chance to copy those? If you didn't, I'll put them up. I'm going to break out into a room breakout.
They're in the chat right now.
Oh.
And maybe
I'm
if you
sorry
hold
that
that up, everybody can take a picture of it.
So, and I'm going to give you another way to look at this. I'm going to put the other one back up. The other one. Tell me when you guys are ready. I'll put this down.
We just capture a picture. Perfect.
And there's the other thing is, if you look at it like this is giving you the same thing. It's saying, all my life's going along. This is a really old drawing, by the way, by a famous old storytelling guy. And then one day, oh no, all this happens until finally this happens. And now I'm up here. And ever since then, so it's a journey curve giving you an actual curve to look at. Just another way, because some people are more visual. I can tell you when I learned storytelling, none of this made any sense to me. Just by practicing storytelling, it starts to just flip on you. One of the things that you guys are going to do as we break out into pods and practice this is you're going to keep practicing together. You're going to find comfort in that because it's a great skill, because it's only through story that people can hear. People don't remember data. I won this. Who cares? Only through story can we contextualize and compare our stories to your stories. So what I want to do, we're going to break out in a room. And what I want you to do is I want you to tell a story of uber importance. Now this is, a story that's important to you. That's what I mean. This right here is a map. This is something that has to do with my life. This is not what we're going to do in here. But what I have in here is I have monumental moments like alone when I was a little kid, when I was being picked on. That's a great story because there's a sad part and a better side. I have the moldy mattress story that I told in here, which goes from good to bad. I have the rock the socks story in here. I have some not so pleasant. I'm not going to tell you what that story is because it wasn't so pleasant. But my point is I want you to think of a story that matters in your life, and it can be a story that's happening right now. But I want you to practice a story. Maybe it's why you're in school. Maybe it's why you chose this profession. Maybe it's what you want to do in the world, but it ties into something young. I'm going to give you one more simple story before you do this. When I was a little kid, I remember going on Halloween trick-or-treating, and I loved Halloween, and I lived in a small mountain town with 3,000 people. And we would go on Halloween and we would get wax lips, we would get bit of honey candy and those little candy corns, but they were always really simple gifts because people didn't have a lot of money because we all worked in the woods. But there was one house down on Southeast Lawrence Street where the Hannas lived, and the Hanna family owned the Coca-Cola bottling company in town. And we went to the Hanna house. They didn't give us these tiny little candies. We got a family-sized Hershey bar, and almost certainly they'd also have this big witch's cauldron, and they would have root beer like I could only get at A&W root beer. And when I left the Hanna's house as a little kid, I felt better about myself. I mean, it did that. They paused on me and they smiled at me and they served me and they gave me something that I would feel almost like, wow, look what I got. I saw myself a little higher. And I remember when I was a little kid, I thought, I want to be like that family when I grow up. It wasn't that house they lived in. It was how they made me feel. And it recently hit me that I get to be that corporate socially responsible guy. I get to be the guy handing out something in the parade. I get to be the guy handing something back. And that means a lot. So there's just another story to take you into this, but that ties into my childhood. And what I want you to realize is your stories, your authentic stories, who they really are, is the only thing that's going to be heard in the world. Yeah, nobody can hear anything unless it's distinct. It pulls you out of the minutia. It pulls you out of that blinding amount of inauthenticity. There's more inauthenticity in the world you're walking into than the world that Jay and I grew up in. And so storytelling is your key to do this. So I'm going to let Angel take over. We're going to break into rooms of like 4 people for like 6-7 minutes. And what I want the brave ones to do, I purposely don't have time for everybody. I don't want to require that you do this, but I want you to be brave and play. There's enough time for you to play with your story. Ideally, you tell a story quickly. A story quickly is the story I told you on this tape. Nigel gave blood. He gave blood because he had to. He had to give blood. He had too much iron until he met a little girl who needed a blood transfusion once a week just to survive. And since then, Nigel's blood giving is a life-changing experience. He loves giving blood and has changed his life. He's given blood every 2 months or every week now for 30 years, lovingly. So anyway, I want you to tell a story. I'd rather it be about you, but if you can tell a story like Jay did. Jay told my story. He's never told that story before of me, and he hit all the emotions, and that I really appreciate the way, Jay, you honored that story. That's how you tell a story. You honor it. You never giggle at inappropriate times in a story. You act as if it's like a living thing. So break in the storytelling group. If you don't understand, just be brave. I want you to play with cortisol and oxytocin. I want you to bring him cortisol for 30 seconds to 45, and then give him plenty of oxytocin for 20, 30, and then end the story. That's what I want you to do. And then when we come back, we'll let a couple of you weigh in on how you did it. Are we ready to break in now? Is that good, Angel?
Yep, ready to go.
Thank you. Make it happen. How was that? I actually spent like half of the group time, and I got to hear parts of several people's stories, and it was really powerful. I just heard a story in 1 minute that was really powerful. I heard the end of another story. So I don't know. I think some people might want to like share, like if somebody in your group, like, oh my God, they really got cortisol and the oxytocin and they did it relatively quickly, point them out and let's hear them.
I really like Bettina's story. Not to put you on the spot. I love you, Bettina.
Bettina, tell your story. I was hoping somebody would say that.
Oh, so I share my story with the group?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, once upon a time, when I still studied in the Philippines, my school had an outreach program. And for an entire school year, we would be assigned to a low income community. And I enjoyed the program. Every time we would meet with them, we would plan activities, we would talk to them, check in, see how they were. And one of the last meetings that we had got a bit serious. Our conversation with the family kind of, yeah, it got deep. I was talking, this family that I was assigned to was a single mother with her 3 children. And she was talking about how it was difficult for her to support her family. And she started crying, and that really it really affected me. It really impacted me just to see like how difficult it was for her, how much pain she was in. And because of that, it made me just value the program even more. I cherished all the other meetings I had with them, and now that has made me try and volunteer outside, not only in school, but do it on my own time and help others who are in need.
That's a great story. So remember some of the things we were talking about earlier that you guys really fished out? Like, it's got to be memorable. It's got to be relevant. It's got to matter. It's got to change. It's got to be your own story. I mean, I just gave you answers, but didn't that hit a lot of those bells for you? Anybody want to comment on that?
It was very sweet. And I think that event really probably shaped you as a person, right, Bettina? And yeah, it's really sweet.
I love the way you just said that. I mean, Crystal, the way you just said that was really sweet. The way you just hang that word sweet out there, there's something really authentic. The way Crystal just hung that out there. That's because that real authentic story that you told about a real mother in a foreign land from us that was in need and she broke down. We all know what that feels like. You know why? Because sometimes that's been our own mothers, or it's been people that's happened. And we've all felt something similar. You gave us a real story. We could tell it was real because you were a little bit shy with it. You treated it like a living thing. You were careful in the way that you held. We saw her, the way you lifted that woman. You didn't disregard her. You didn't dismiss her in any way. You held her up as a proud mother that was sad and didn't know what to do. And we've all seen that in our lives, sometimes very close. So I want you guys to know that that is storytelling. That's why that worked. Your story can be better too, Bettina. It can be better if you, let me tell you what'll be better. I'm not saying, I look at marketing, anything to do with storytelling, anything with branding, any messaging can always be better. So it's not a critique. It's that don't ever think it's set, because storytelling is never set. It's always telling from a different perspective. I want to tell you when that story will have more impact. When you are leading something that's changing the community. And now when you tell that story, when you're my age and you tell that story, think about what all of the other layers that have happened since then, just like that woman back in the Philippines. And now because of that, we're reaching women everywhere. And so your story is going to grow with time, because stories are beautiful, living, breathing things. There's also mechanisms where when you start giving us the cortisol, we got the pain. Once we get the pain of the woman, you have an obligation to give us the antidote very soon. Because what happens is if you leave me hanging with too many facts about that woman in the Philippines, what happens is my subconscious brain starts to shut down, because I don't have the energy to squirt cortisol all day. And so what my brain does is my cognitive brain loses interest in the story. Now, I didn't get to that point, but that's what happens in the story. So that's why you have to swim quickly. The story I told in the beginning was way too long. I'll give you another quick story and then we'll move on. Paul Leone runs the Illumination Foundation. This is a story not about me. This is about a guy who goes out and helps the chronically homeless. Those are homeless people that can't get help on their own. So you picture that. So here's the story. Paul Leone, One of the reasons he's so listened to is the way he tells this story about Stephen. He talks about Stephen, who was a one-armed veteran that he found living under a freeway underpass. And as they woke him up, because he was unconscious, 2 weeks later, when he came to, the first thing he said, Paul, I can count on my one hand how many times I've been acknowledged by another human being in the 10 years I've lived under this freeway. And that's a remarkable pain that he leaves you in. But then Paul says immediately, but 2 months later, there was Stephen with his sleeve pinned up on one side and his girlfriend in his arm on the other. And he graduated the Illumination Foundation into permanent housing. And when Paul tells that story, I'll never forget it, because I'll never forget the pain. And no one of us will ever forget the pain. Just like you won't forget the mold, we cannot forget the pain of Bettina's woman, this family that she helped that was poor in the Philippines when she was a little girl. We remember that. So anybody else want to tell a story that we just told from the group? Or if you understand the principle of pain and gain, you can retell a story that you just heard. Either one. By the way, there's a book that I get a lot of this from. It's a book called Retellable. This is my speech coach. His name is Jay Golden. If you guys come here, I promise I will give you a copy of this. In the book Retellable, the whole litmus test for a story, is it retellable or not? Is it something that when you hear it, you want to go home and tell your girlfriend or your mom? If it's not, then why are you wasting somebody's time with dropping names and all that stuff? And it's a beautiful thing when you start to when you look at your words that way, and all of a sudden, when you look at your stories as needing to be retellable, you realize you shut up a lot of times when you should be listening. And you speak in terms of moving people from pain to gain. Anyone else have a story?
I really like Mona's stories about kind of just getting understanding of herself and her background, and kind of knowing what she wanted from her culture, and then knowing to what she didn't know.
You want to tell that, Mona?
Yeah, sure. It was really quickly, but I'll try to add more oomph to it the way you guys did. But basically, when I was younger, I used to live in Boston, Massachusetts. I lived there since 2012, and then I moved to California. And I was just telling my group that those Christmas movies that you see like when you're younger, and like it's like that perfect ideal childhood where all the kids are outside playing with their neighbors, having such a fun time. Yeah, I kind of had one of those childhood memories, and like that thing when I just I could go outside and like ring my friend's doorbell and ask if they want to go outside and bike ride around and just do really like awesome things. And when my parents said one day like, hey, we're thinking of moving to California, Southern California, it broke my heart. Like everything in me just kind of stopped, and I didn't know how to react. I was just like, this can't be happening. There's no way that I'm moving across the country from like my friends and family that I've known for like the past 12 years or so. And I didn't know how to react. But on the last day that we left, all my neighbors came to my front yard. We had a semicircle driveway, and it was like in a suburban area in Boston, and everyone came in our front yard, and we all were talking about like, maybe we should just like run away into the woods and just like not come back. Like we shouldn't do this or whatever. But then one of my neighbor's moms came up to me and she gave me a hug. And it was like it was one of those hugs that kind of stick with you, that like you feel that feeling even when you're gone. And when she gave me that hug, all my other neighbors gave me a hug, all the kids, all the other parents. And eventually we all just kind of had this really big bear hug, just standing on my front yard. And I started crying. I started breaking down. And I'm not someone that usually gets emotional. It's really hard for me to tap into my feelings, but it just really hit different. And I was just like, wow, I'm leaving. Like this is happening, and I don't want it to happen, but I think it needs to happen. Like there could be more opportunities waiting for me. So as I came to California, I realized that, I needed that change, because On the East Coast, there weren't a lot of kids like me in terms of diversity and like Asian cultures and even Indians and stuff like that. So I didn't really have a lot to relate to. But when I moved to Southern California, I found a lot of kids that looked like me and understood like really like where I came from. I never really understood like the cultural side of myself. So having that exposure, I feel like from that age, like around middle school and even high school, I feel like was so vital to help me be the person I am today. I definitely don't think I would have been the same person today if I didn't move to California. So just that change and realizing that, like, you know, yes, it may be an uproot in your life and you may be comfortable, but there are opportunities wherever you go. And I had a lot of reflection and just time to be like, I'm really grateful for my family and I'm really grateful for the opportunities that are coming into my life. But it definitely like said a lot about what was going on, and it made me really grateful for what I had. So yeah.
Good. I don't want to offer a lot of criticism to stories, but I'm going to say something about stories. Stories are very personal, and it's all about being heard more. And it's not a right or wrong. You got to play with your stories. So when you tell a story, you almost need to be flexible, because the story should change according to the questions of the interest of the listener. Do you ever notice you start talking sometimes and the listener's not listening, and you go, "Well, I got to speed this story up." By the way, if you're not doing that, oh boy, you're really not being heard, because you have to adjust your stories to the listener. And so there's a lot of stuff that I can give you, and I will give you more by the way, you can always reach out to me and ask me certain things, but right now I'm sticking to the principle of getting him from oxytocin, or getting him from cortisol to oxytocin. So the one thing I'll say about Mona, if we can get him there quicker, because your real story was the separation of moving. We know what that feels like. We've gone through it. Our family's gone through it. And then you were able to tie it back. So in my mind, I'm going, what's her until finally? What's her ever since then? And then really, that gave me perspective on my life. But there's so many questions I have about your story that we don't have time to break that down. So you know what it really is? There's more than one story there. There's lots of stories there. And sometimes the listener, we need a story that's more simple. It's simple as one thing, like when I tell one of these blood stories, or like the story of when I went to Thailand on my Mormon mission. I'm not Mormon, but when I grew up earlier, I used to be Mormon. And when you're Mormon, you have to go to another foreign country, or wherever you go. You have no choice. It's what you do. And so I was excited to go to Thailand because I had to go. But on the other hand, I didn't want to go teach people religion. I just didn't want to tell people their religion was wrong. It just didn't suit me. And also I didn't like service. Service to me was helping people move and stuff like that. I wasn't geared up to do this, but I went on a Mormon mission because you have to go. And I went to Thailand. And I love Thailand. It was so completely different, but it was wild. And I'm only there a couple of months. I don't speak Thai yet. It's hot. I'm not catching up. And this guy comes into my room and he says, "Elder Antis," because that's how they talk. "Elder Antis, we're going to an orphanage today." And I go, "Okay." And he goes, "Well, you're not going to like it." I go, "Why?" He goes, "Because it's hot, it's on air conditioning, and they mix the physically and mentally handicapped." And I'm thinking, oh, that's not good. That's not ideal. I don't necessarily want to go there, but I have to do it. I'm not thinking it's going to be fun. And I walk in this room finally, and I get separated from my companion, and I'm in this room. It's about the size of a normal office, and there's 20 kids sleeping on the ground. And so I go to these kids that are sleeping on the ground. I walk in there, and suddenly one of them in the middle, she just lifts up her arms and she looks at me like this, and she's got these really long arms. And so what do? I know what that means. Go pick her up. And I noticed my mood was better. I went to pick up this little girl, but as I went to lift this little girl, and I thought she was going to weigh like 40 pounds, I was shocked. She had like spinal bifida. And so I lifted her. This little 7-8-year-old girl only weighed like maybe 12, 13 pounds. And so I was kind of like, oh, what am I going to do? And I didn't want to hold her against me because I just didn't know. And so I kind of did that thing that you do when the neighbor gives you the kid you don't want to hold. I go, huh, and I went to bounce. But as I went to bounce her off, I felt her fingers dig in. And so okay. All right, I regrouped. About 30 seconds later, I went bounce, bounce. And this time when I went to bounce her off, not only did her fingers dig in, these long arms wrapped around me, but I felt her smile. And she just had this big smile, and she just lit me up, and I didn't know what I was feeling. Wow, it's like, what's going on? This girl we don't speak. I don't speak Thai. She doesn't speak English. We're walking around and we're pointing at things. And the only way I've been able to describe that ever is it reminds me growing up in the mountains of Oregon. My grandma cooked on a wooden stove, and she had this big pot, and she stirred it with this big wooden ladle. And it was like grandma was stirring something up inside me that I'd never felt before. I felt alive, awakened. This little girl needed something in me, and there was some connection that was happening. And the reason that it really stood out to me is that same missionary that dropped me off and said, "This is your room." He came back and he said, "Hey, Elder Antis, it's time to go." And I go, "What it is?" He goes, "Yeah, it's 2:00. 4 hours had passed." And it was just so odd to me that 4 hours had passed holding this little girl, and everything had changed. Going back at that moment, I didn't know what had changed. I thought I was supposed to adopt her. I went back and visited her after my Mormon mission. I was confused, but looking back today, because some stories don't really make sense, like I said earlier, and today, looking back, that little girl in my first time in my adult life awakened to me what really matters. She awakened in something in me where in that moment, I was alive and fulfilled, connected, making this little girl happy. And ever since then, in the stories in my life, I'm a champion for kids. I'm a champion for kids noticing themselves higher, seeing themselves more, able to do more. But it all started back in that orphanage, back in Thailand, 19, that I didn't want to go to. So there's just another taste of another story. One of the things that I don't do well in storytelling, it's really healthy for me to talk about what I don't do well, is sometimes I tell too many facts. And when I do, I cheat your body that needs cortisol quicker, and the other thing that I do is I don't plan my ending. And one of the things that storytelling coaches tell you is you should know where you're going to end. And I love not knowing where I'm ending. And I think you have to kind of know where you want to end, at least, because if you don't know where you're going to end, you're just going to end wherever, and you might not end on a pain to gain story. So what you really want is to give somebody something that they can forever use to make their life easier. So I used to see the world this way, but now that Charles told me this story, I realize things are much more possible. And now my life will never be the same again. I mean, that's what you want to do. And I believe it's possible. So one of the things we talked about earlier that I want to get to before we do in the breakout is how to be you, how to know who you are. You guys are young people. You have all these expectations of family, religion, culture, school. If all of them are real. Our brains, by the way, are designed to fall into the biased circles that we're in. We're designed to be that way. If we weren't, we would all be alone in the desert dying. If you go back to EQ, we're designed to fall into group thinking. So one of the ways that I use to find out who you are, and I've given this to a lot of students, and it's a great tool. I've given it to hundreds of business leaders, and it's the 5-minute journal. And the reason this is important is it's a tool. You don't have to buy this book, but I will give you one if you come by here. But you just have to do this practice every morning. I promise you this will help you to tell better stories because it helps you know who you are, where you come from, what matters for you. What I want you to do when you get up every morning is to write down 3 things you're grateful for, 3 things that'll make the day great, and 2 I ams. I'm going to show you the way I fill out this book. I have a copy over here, an old one. When I fill out this book, I go crazy. I write bubble letters sometimes because I find that when I want to lift everyone I touch every day, I find that if I write it in bubble letters, it matters. Now this is getting weird. I also learned in yoga from my daughter who teaches vinyasa yoga, when you break out of the sleep trance at the end of yoga, she says, wiggle your fingers and your toes because it makes your body happier. I've looked up some science on that. So if I can make my body happier, when I wake up every morning, the first thing I do is I wiggle my fingers and my toes. I make sure I go out and I do like a tree meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong, whatever I want to call it. I do whatever it's going to take so that I can feel aliveness in today, that I can get to that point where tomorrow is history, or yesterday's history and tomorrow's a vision, but today well lived makes all your stories matter. That's it. There's an old ancient Sanskrit that, to me, I don't remember who wrote it, but it says, look to this day, for it is the life of life. In its brief existence lie all the realities of existence, splendor, growth, action, power. For yesterday is but a dream and tomorrow is but a vision, but today well lived makes all your yesterday's stories of happiness, and all tomorrow's stories of hope. But you have to get your mind right for the day. So my point is this: you can't tell stories if you're not alive with who you are in the moment. And if you need a tool to know who you are alive in the moment, this is good, because it gets me to a place where I can almost cry in front of you. It gets me to a place where, Jay, you were making me mad when you're telling that story, because he's not on here anymore. But when Jay was telling that story, he was like, oh my God, he's gonna make me cry. But then I realized, oh yeah, that's okay. It's a bullshit factor in me that says it's not okay. Because what I want you to know, that in the world, the super inauthentic world that we live in today, the world you're inheriting, that your secret to being heard inside and out, your family, everywhere you're at, your secret is going to be authentic and tell your story. Your secret is going to be to tell your story from the point of view of your experience, Bettina, growing up. How old were you in the Philippines when that happened?
Oh, I think I was 14.
I mean, that's so powerful to me, because I understand its importance. You know, if we had an ongoing class, we don't. One of the things I would encourage you to do, and I'm going to ask you guys to do this. And by the way, I'm hard to sometimes track because I move fast, but I love doing this. If we ever want to set up a second session, I would be no problem. But one of the things, this is called peaks and valleys. A peaks and valleys exercise, basically what you do is you just chart out your good memories and your bad memories. And when you chart out you can see that little bottle of Coca-Cola right there in that Hershey's bar. There's my Halloween memory. But when you chart out your bad memories, it helps you find your values. So if you go to that bad memory, so I'm gonna tell you something kind of funny. I'm not gonna tell you the whole story, I'm gonna leave you hanging, but I was like the last kid on this is kind of personal and it's kind of funny, it's also kind of embarrassing, but I was the last kid to go through puberty in my high school. So that means that I was the sophomore in high school that, hey, everybody, and high voice. And it was really embarrassing. So that's a story that it's funny now, and there's lots of funny components around it. But it's my real story. And, you know, I have funny stories about my childhood. Like I still know what my batting average was in Little League. And I'm a great Little League coach today, because the kid strikes out. I go, you know, I still know what my batting average was, because I never had a hit for 2 years. I was 0. So it's like, you know, I have life stories are so good when you practice telling your life stories. But if you write out your good memories and your bad memories, what you do is, like, you take that bad memory, the one I mentioned when I was late going through puberty. This is what it was. The reason that story is important is, what was it that makes that memorable? There was something missing. What was it that was missing that I crave today? One of my values today is respect and acknowledgement, because I was unacknowledged and overlooked, and I was, you know, people were mean. Some boys were mean to me, as you can imagine. You know, when back then they made you shower together. It was like a little kid showering with men, and they were snapping me with towels. Now I'm making you, you know, now I'm telling you all the cortisol. But look at me now. I'm okay now. You know, it's okay now. But my point is by looking at that story, oh, that tells me what I valued. So I'm going to talk today about acknowledging people, because I had a period where I didn't know what was going to happen. Or I go to those great memories when I was a little kid, like, you know, I told you some of the stories. I got in a fight in high school where this kid was bullying me, and he embarrassed me through a karate. He was a black belt. Everyone was afraid of him in the school, and he was picking on me, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I had no choice. I said, well, let's go outside, because he was humiliating me. And I just started swinging. I got lucky and hit him in the chin, and he got knocked out, and he got kicked out of school. And I became a school hero over this story. So that's a good memory, you know, even though it's a funny story now. It's like, wow, what was there? What did I get at that moment? I got respect. You know, and it's kind of silly, but I suddenly wasn't laughed at anymore. I was taken seriously. Do you know what that means to me, to be lecturing to a group of scholars? I'm taken seriously. I know why, because of my story right here. And so I want to do one more session. and I don't want to assign this because I don't want it, which is not, I don't want this to be that kind of a class. I want it to be informative, but I want you to take a high moment or low moment from your childhood. And it's what we've done so far. Sometimes I could say just go low, but I don't, some people to go into low moments, it's like, oh, we need a therapy class right after. I don't want to do that. But I honestly think though, that your guys' pain stories, some of your stories too, I know not all of you are from here. I mean, some of your stories, some of the stories I've heard from the students are, oh my God, that's like stuff I haven't experienced. But my point is in those stories, that's where your magic is. You guys know Tam from Nguyen from Advanced Beauty College. Look at, I mean, if he wasn't Vietnamese, it wouldn't matter. If he, his stories tie in, all of his stories tie in, and it makes you love him for who he is. So your ethnicity, when it's relevant in the story, be proud of it and own it. It's who you are. So I would like to does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, let's take the last 10 minutes, Charles, to actually the last 5 minutes. Yeah, we're running out of time. So let's just jump into questions. So
Okay,
if anyone has any questions, feel free to use these last 5.
I thought we had 30 more minutes left.
Yeah, we're running out.
We need a lot more time. So maybe we can do another session in the future.
Yeah, we're going to do another session. So let's do some questions. And then let me leave you with one story and a way to tie it up. So how about some questions?
If you have questions, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away.
Yeah, you mentioned a few, is it unreadable or readable, restore? I can't remember what you just,
Retellable.
retellable.
I love that. Unreadable. That sounds so funny. I'm going to tell Jay that you called it unreadable. That's so
Well, it
funny.
could be unreadable. You unread your story to make it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Could be. Except that's unreadable also means it's gibberish. You can't read it. So it becomes non-inclusive language. And in storytelling, as much as you can, you want to use positive language. That's the only, that breaks a rule of mine. But also sometimes you use negative words to create the contrast, but the bulk of your words have to be positive. That's one of my rules. So I throw marketing rules into storytelling. I use images in storytelling. I provoke images in storytelling because it is messaging. But by the way, if any of you come by here, I know it's kind of a weird offer today in COVID times, but I keep thinking it's going to get better. I will. I just can't put it on my staff to send books to everybody individually, but I do love to share books. And by the way, this 5-minute journal, this is a really powerful book. It's because it cuts through barriers like family, religion. It just gets into who you are. It lets you find the genius, because I believe that all of us really are magic creators, but society, but you know, the little kid, the magic in little kids that us parents, we don't mean to, but we crush when they can dream everything. And I have 6-year-olds and I'm watching myself, as aware as I am, still crushing some of their dreams sometimes. I believe that you can tap into your magic. And I believe that we are master creators that can create everything that we think of. And as you think, I mean, one of the things that I like to say, and this is getting off of storytelling, but I believe it's true, and it's a chant that I love to give youth, and you're close enough, I'm going to give it to you. This is the thing that I say whenever I wake up in the middle of the night, which my brain does sometimes at 3 a.m. I say this: I'm so happy and grateful that everything in the universe is conspiring on my behalf. I'm going to say that again. I'm so happy and grateful that everything in the universe is conspiring on my behalf. I can't think of a bigger compliment or a bigger blessing to give myself than that. So why not? And I can tell you that's exactly how it works, you know? And so, but mapping it in something like this is critical, because this will map your best. And it provokes positive thought. And if we allow ourselves to wake up in negative thoughts, sometimes I wake up with old dreams. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the old religious dreams follow me, and I'm not slamming religion. I'm not slamming my parents' religion. It's the way I interpret it. But this allows me to rewrite the day. And if you want to tell stories, you need to be content. Nobody wants to listen to any story from some bastard who doesn't like to be around people, and shows it by the way he tells stories. So, you know, this helps you to be your genuinely happy self. So I strongly recommend it. So the last thing I'll say, how much time do I have?
3 minutes.
But you needed to cut 3 minutes early? So how much time do I really have?
You have 3 minutes.
Okay. So we have this blood drive that we've been having at Antis campus ever since the world shifted. Our 18th blood drive is next week. One of the blood people that came by to donate, this guy named Harry. Harry came in, and I know him at the roofing, and I said, Harry, why don't you give from both arms? And I was kidding him, and I put out both arms, and he put out both arms. That night, he sent me an email, and he said, Charles, this is really awkward. When you said that, it freaked me out. He said, because I grew up in Lebanon, and it was a civil war going on, and people were dying on both sides. So many people were dying because nobody would go to the hospital to donate blood. So people were dying from loss of blood until the largest man in the village, he heard this. He was sick of the civil war. So he braved the war, and he went to the hospital. No one answered the door. So he actually broke down the doors, and he thrust out both wrists. And he said, take what you want from both arms, and don't stop until you have all that you need. And after this man braved the village and stormed the doors, the village heard about this, and it created healing in the village as more people showed up. And when Harry tells this story, the reason I wanted to end with it is that's kind of like the world we're in now. Harry comes in like this man, giving both arms, if he could, would give. And I think in the world we live today, what makes us stand out, what makes you stand out is who you are and what you live for. And I think for me, as a person who has a social responsible company, I tell other business leaders, man, who are you? Why do you exist? If it's just to make a buck, good luck. We exist to keep families safe and dry. Just like this man who burst down the hospital doors and gave it with both hands. I want to be all in on making the world a better place. And that's why our story has so much power in it. So that's a good place to finish. But I would love to do this again. You know, I'm more of I'm not an expert teacher. I love to listen. I love to, we sometimes, you know, I'm actually teaching the same class for United Way, teaching business owners how to do this. But I have another instructor. So there's a lot that we might be able to even broker in a piece of that class for the students in the future where we're talking about social responsible ways. But however I can help, you guys know I'm down for always teaching this. Mona, who I heard a few of your stories. I heard a little bit of Dayton's, and I heard God, I can't remember names right now. I hate that. But I really appreciate everybody I got interaction with. I thank you guys. You guys are an amazing group of students. Everything that we ever say about you, it's true. We love you guys. We love your stories. We love the way that you show up all in and create this strong family of internationality, unlike anywhere that I've seen in the world. So proud of you guys.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to do this workshop today. That was really awesome. I can tell just based on everyone's conversations, we had some really, really great stories, and I'm looking forward to this event sometime in the future. So with that being said, I just wanted to close off the event really quickly, and thank you all for coming again. Razi just put in the chat our next event for the center is our Meet the Executive event, and it is about entrepreneurs. So that one's going to be on Friday, November 6th from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. Be sure to register using that link or go online and register there too. So with that being said, thank you all so much for coming, and have a great rest of your Thursday. And yeah, thank you so much.
Tell your stories. Get the 5-minute journal.